In the year 256, humanity had finally reached the pinnacle of intergalactic exploration. With the invention of faster-than-light travel known as the Alcubierre warp drive, the United Earth Space Probe Agency, a U.S. BA, had sent out a fleet of ships to explore and colonize distant planets across the galaxy. The USS Endeavour, a state-of-the-art battleship, was one such vessel that had been dispatched on a mission to investigate anomalies in the outer rim of the Andromeda Galaxy. Captain Jackson Lee, a seasoned space officer with years of experience, stood at the helm of the ship as it pierced through the veil of interstellar space. The crew of the Endeavour had been monitoring strange energy signatures emanating from a sector designated as SCIFI IV. The readings indicated an extraordinary level of chaos and destruction, unlike anything seen before in recorded history. As the Endeavour entered the system, the crew was met with a sight that defied explanation. The once blue skies of SCIFI IV's primary planet had turned a deep crimson, as if the very fabric of space itself had been torn apart. Planets collided and exploded, sending massive shockwaves through the galaxy. "It can't be natural," Captain Lee muttered to his second-in-command, Commander Sarapatl. "Whatever is causing this chaos has to be some kind of, I don't know, an alien technology gone rogue or something." The crew scrambled to gather more information on the phenomenon. Sensors picked up strange energy pulses emanating from multiple points across the galaxy. The data was being transmitted back to Earth in real time, but it was clear that whatever was happening here, it was far beyond human comprehension. Commander Patel approached Captain Lee with a grave expression. "Sir, we're receiving messages from other ships in the area. They're not making sense." The captain raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Patel hesitated before continuing. "It's like they're speaking different languages or something. But it's not just that, the grammar and syntax are all wrong. It's as if their brains are being rewritten or something." Lee's expression turned grim. This was no ordinary alien encounter. The crew of the Endeavour sprang into action, scrambling to deploy defense systems and prepare for battle. But as they entered the heart of the system, it became clear that this was not a conventional war. Alien spacecraft, unlike anything humanity had ever seen before, swarmed through the galaxy like insects on a mission from hell. The vessels were unlike any known design, twisted metal latticeworks with pulsating energy cores at their center. "Sir, we're reading strange propulsion systems," an officer called out. "It's not Alcubierre warp drive or anything we've seen before." Lee's eyes narrowed as he analyzed the data streaming in from his sensors. "I think I know what this is. It's some kind of quantum entanglement drive. We're talking about manipulating probability fields to achieve faster-than-light travel." The implications were staggering. If these alien ships could manipulate space, time itself, humanity might be facing a threat unlike anything they had ever imagined. As the Endeavour engaged with the enemy forces, Captain Lee realized that this was not just an intergalactic conflict, it was a battle for the very fabric of reality. The U.S. Endeavour clashed with the alien armada in a maelstrom of laser blasts and quantum energy pulses. The ship's shields held firm, but Captain Lee knew they couldn't keep this up for much longer. "Commander Patel, what do we know about these ships?" he shouted above the din of battle. "Not enough, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But our sensors are picking up strange energy signatures on their hulls. It's like they're tapping into the underlying structure of space-time itself." Lee's eyes locked onto a massive alien vessel looming ahead. Its body was a twisted mass of energy and matter, with tendrils of quantum flux probing out in all directions. "Prepare for boarding action," he ordered. "We need to get on one of those ships and see what's going on inside their heads." Commander Patel nodded, but her expression said she had reservations. "Sir, if we're dealing with something that can manipulate probability fields, I don't know if we want to be inside their head space." Lee's grip on the armrests tightened. He knew what was at stake. Humanity might be facing an extinction-level threat, and he was about to take his ship straight into the heart of it. The Endeavour shuddered as it absorbed a direct hit from one of the alien ships. Alarms blared through the comms system as internal damage reports came in. But Lee refused to yield. He had a mission to complete. "Prepare for boarding, Commander," he repeated, his voice firm despite the turmoil around him. The Endeavour's assault team, consisting of hand-picked Marines and engineers, boarded an alien ship that had been crippled by the battleship's laser fire. As they made their way deeper into the vessel, strange energy pulses racked their bodies, making it hard to breathe and see straight. Their destination was the central chamber, where the alien command center was said to be located. But what they found there shook them to their core. Inside the heart of the ship, a being unlike any other sat at the controls. It was an amorphous mass of energy and matter, its surface shifting like the surface of a liquid mirror. The being turned towards the human team as they entered the chamber. For an instant, Lee thought he saw something, a flicker of recognition, or perhaps even curiosity. But then it spoke. "We are the architects. the alien entity said in a voice that resonated through every molecule on board. "We have shaped the universe to our purpose, and you are the aberration." The human team stumbled backward as the architect's words washed over them like a tidal wave of existential despair. "What do you mean?" Lee asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We created the chaos," the being replied. "We forged this galaxy into a crucible for evolution. And your kind, you are the product of our experiment." Lee felt as though he was staring into an abyss of infinite possibility and limitless terror. The implications were too much to bear. "What's the purpose of all this?" he managed to stammer. The architect turned back to its console, fingers weaving through energy currents like a conductor leading an orchestra. "We are guiding evolution," it said. "And you are the next step." Lee realized that humanity was about to be rewritten, reshaped by forces beyond their control or understanding. The very fabric of reality was being altered before his eyes, and he felt powerless against the tides of change sweeping through the galaxy. But he also knew that he couldn't give up. He had a duty to protect his crew and his people, no matter what horrors lay ahead. With newfound determination, Captain Lee turned towards the human team. "We have to get back to the Endeavor," he ordered. "Prepare for evac, we're leaving this place behind." But as they turned to leave, the architect's final words echoed through their minds. "The chaos. It's just beginning." As the human team made their way back to the Endeavor, they couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The encounter with the architects had left them questioning everything they thought they knew about the universe. "Sir, we're receiving a message from Earth," Commander Patel said as she entered the bridge of the Endeavor. Lee's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" "It's from the Director General of UESPA," Patel replied, her voice tinged with concern. "She wants to speak with you directly." The captain nodded, and a holographic projection of the Director General appeared before him. "Celeste." "Leon, what's going on?" Lee asked, using his first name for the woman who had mentored him in his early days as a naval officer. "We've been monitoring your situation," she replied gravely. "We know what happened on Silofia V. We need to discuss the implications." Lee took a deep breath. He knew what was coming. The architect's words had left no doubt about it. "What are you saying, Celeste?" he asked, his voice firm but laced with trepidation. "We're facing an existential threat," she said bluntly. "The architects, they're not just manipulating probability fields. They're rewriting reality itself. We need to understand what they're doing and why." Lee's eyes locked on the Director General's hologram. He knew that humanity was about to be plunged into a crisis of epic proportions. "What are our options?" he asked, his voice heavy with foreboding. "We'll have to assemble an emergency council," Celeste replied. "Scientists, philosophers, everybody we can get to help us understand this phenomenon. We need to know what's happening and how to stop it." Lee nodded, a plan forming in his mind. He knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he was willing to do whatever it took to protect his people. But as he turned to Commander Patel, he saw something that made his heart sink. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission from Silofia IV," she said, her voice trembling. "What is it?" Lee asked, his gut telling him that this was not going to be good. "It's the architect again," Patel replied. "And it's offering us a gift." Lee's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. The architects were not just manipulating reality. They were playing humanity like pawns in their game of cosmic evolution. "What kind of gift?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It says that if we surrender to its will," Patel replied, her words dripping with foreboding, "it will spare us from the chaos. But there's a catch." Lee felt as though he was staring into an abyss of uncertainty and fear. "What is it?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the rising dread in his chest. The transmission from Silofia IV cut off, leaving Lee with more questions than answers. He knew that humanity was about to face a choice, one that would decide their fate for generations to come. As he turned to Commander Patel, he saw something that made his heart sink even further. The ship's sensors were picking up an energy signature, unlike anything they had seen before. "It's happening," Lee whispered. "The chaos is spreading." And as the universe itself began to unravel around them, Captain Lee knew that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet, a challenge that would test their very existence. The energy signature grew stronger, enveloping the Endeavor in an otherworldly aura. The ship's instruments went haywire as it struggled to comprehend the unprecedented phenomenon. "Captain, I'm detecting a rift in space-time itself," Commander Patel said, her voice laced with alarm. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Lee's eyes locked onto the main view screen as the universe outside began to distort and writhe. The stars blurred into a mad whirl of color and light. "We're being pulled towards it," he growled, his grip on the armrests tightening. "Prepare for whatever this is." The ship shuddered violently as it breached the rift, plummeting into a realm beyond the bounds of reality. Lee's stomach dropped as the gravity fluctuations threw him against his restraints. What have we gotten ourselves into? Commander Patel asked, her voice trembling. Lee's gaze scanned the chaos outside, a maelstrom of swirling energies and impossible geometries. The universe itself was unraveling before their eyes. We need to find a way out, he ordered, his mind racing with the implications. Get me all available data on this phenomenon, and try to find a pattern. The ship's computer beeped as it struggled to process the torrent of information streaming in from the rift. Captain, I'm detecting anomalies in the space-time continuum. It said, its voice hesitant. It appears that the architect's manipulation is not just random, there's a purpose behind this chaos. Ali's eyes narrowed as he grasped the implications. The architects were not just rewriting reality, they were creating a new universe, one where humanity would be forced to adapt or perish. We have to find a way back, he said, his voice firm despite the turmoil around him. And we need to understand what's happening before it's too late. The ship lurched again as the rift's energies buffeted them about. Lee gritted his teeth against the pain and nausea, his mind fixed on one thing: survival. As the Endeavor stumbled through the maelstrom, Lee knew that he was fighting not just for humanity's existence, but for their very soul. The ship emerged from the rift, gasping like a wounded beast. The view screen cleared, revealing an unfamiliar star system. Lee's eyes widened as he took in the vista before him, a universe unlike any they had ever seen, where stars blazed with impossible colors and planets rotated at surreal speeds. What is this? Commander Patel breathed, her voice barely audible over the stunned silence. Lee's gaze locked onto the main view screen, his heart heavy with foreboding. The architect's gift had come with a terrible price. Humanity was now trapped in an eternal labyrinth of chaos, forced to adapt or perish in a realm beyond their comprehension. We're not going home, he whispered, his voice carrying on the stunned silence. We're here to survive. However, the crew of the Endeavor stumbled through the ship's corridors, shell-shocked by the sights they had witnessed outside. Lee walked among them, trying to reassure them that they would find a way out of this impossible universe. But as they reached the bridge, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown source. Commander Patel said, her voice trembling. It's us. A message from our own time. Lee's eyes widened as he saw himself standing on the bridge, surrounded by familiar faces. But something was wrong. They were all speaking in hushed tones, their expressions etched with worry and fear. What's going on? Lee asked, his mind reeling. That's not us, Commander Patel replied, her voice barely above a whisper. A future version of us. A warning. The transmission flickered to life, revealing the faces of men and women who were supposed to be heroes, but now they looked like broken souls. Listen carefully, the future, Lee said, his eyes locked onto the camera lens. We've made a terrible mistake. The architect's gift comes with a price we never could have imagined, and it's too late to turn back. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the crew stunned and confused. What did they mean? Commander Patel asked, her voice shaking. Lee's eyes narrowed as he pieced together the fragments of information. They're telling us that our actions will lead to a catastrophe, one that we can't prevent. We have to accept the consequences of our choices. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The crew of the Endeavor looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. We have two options, Lee said finally, his voice firm despite the doubts creeping into his mind. We can either try to find a way out of this universe, or we can accept our fate and adapt to this new reality. The crew hesitated, unsure of what the future held. But as they looked at each other, Lee saw something in their eyes that gave him hope. We'll do it, Commander Patel said, her voice steady. We'll find a way out no matter what it takes. Lee nodded, his heart filled with determination. Together, they would face whatever lay ahead, even if it meant sacrificing everything they held dear. But as the crew began to plan their next move, Lee couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. He glanced around the bridge, but saw nothing out of the ordinary, until he noticed a figure standing just beyond the edge of the view screen, a figure with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. What is it? Commander Patel asked, noticing his gaze. Lee's mouth opened, but no words came out. The figure was gone before he could react, leaving behind only one message etched on the view screen. You can't escape the architects. That the crew of the Endeavor exchanged uneasy glances as they processed the ominous message. Lee's eyes narrowed, his mind racing with questions. What do you think it means? Commander Patel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lee shook his head. I don't know, but I think we're in for a wild ride. As if to confirm his words, the ship shuddered violently, throwing everyone off balance. The view screen flickered and died, plunging the bridge into darkness. Report. Lee bellowed, his voice carrying above the din of alarms blaring across the ship. The crew scrambled to respond, their voices filled with panic. We're experiencing a gravitational wave anomaly. The ship's trying to correct course. Lee sprang into action, striding over to the navigation console. As he examined the data streaming in, his eyes widened in horror. "We can't control it," Commander Petal shouted above the din. "The ship's being pulled apart by some kind of energy field." Lee's grip on the console tightened as he struggled to compensate for the anomaly. But it was no use. The ship was being torn from its very fabric, leaving them hurtling through space like a shattered leaf. "We're being drawn into a vortex," someone cried out in terror. The words hung in the air like a curse, as the crew of the Endeavour stared into the void. The ship's instruments screamed in protest, overloaded by the sheer power of the energy field. Lee closed his eyes, bracing for impact. But instead of the crushing force he expected, he felt a strange sense of detachment, as if they were being pulled through a wormhole to some distant realm. When he opened his eyes again, the view screen flickered back to life, revealing an impossible sight, a galaxy unlike any they had ever seen, a swirling vortex of colors that seemed to defy the laws of physics. What is this place?" Commander Paddle breathed, her voice trembling with awe. Lee's gaze locked onto the view screen, his mind reeling. They were no longer in our own universe, or even in our reality. They had been transported to a realm beyond all comprehension, where the very fabric of space and time was twisted and distorted. And yet, as he gazed deeper into the vortex, Lee saw something that made his blood run cold, a figure standing at the edge of the void, watching them with eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets. "It's one of us," Lee whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "A future version or something else entirely." As he spoke, the figure began to move towards them, its presence filling the view screen like a dark stain. "What does it want?" Commander Paddle asked, her voice laced with fear. Lee's eyes locked onto hers, filled with a sense of foreboding. "I think we're about to find out."